the last thing, it's so important. I'm not kidding what we are talking about today. It's very important what you said, which model will there be? Now I read a book. I don't agree with it. I still find what goes on in China as very problematic. But it's a book which is, do you know the guy, Roland Baer, B-A-E-R, I don't know how to pronounce it. He's a European, originally theologist, who then got totally converted to Chinese Marxism and now teaches philosophy in Dalian, a big northern, close to Korea, Chinese city, and wrote a book, Socialism with Chinese Characteristics, where, you know, if you read it, what he claims, it's almost what really should have been done. He said that Chinese saw that only capitalist competition brings productivity, but at the same time, they saw that if market is left to itself, it leads to moral decay, self-destruction. So what they try to do is to have the state, and then, I don't believe this guy, Roland, reproduces all the Chinese mythology of how the state in China is very democratic. You have always collaboration, debate with people, even at the lowest level. That through all these social and ecological interests are realized in the sense that the state power sets certain limits to market, either direct limits or indirect limits in the sense of intervening into the market in the interest of society. Now, my problem is, if this were to be true, it's almost a realistic vision of what should be done. Because I wouldn't underestimate this awareness of crisis of capitalism. I did
just want to intervene here because I think the example about China, takes us back to what I was asking you earlier about different models of non-capitalist societies, because on the one hand, China is like horrifically economically unequal, and it's also a surveillance state. And, those things are very bad. But on the other hand, there is a certain way of describing the Chinese model that does actually sound like the sorts of things that thoughtful socialists who think that, okay, maybe we can't have, just sort of Gosplan style, Soviet economic planning, that didn't work. And so, but you could at least have a lot of state direction of the sort of overall flow of the economy at the commanding heights of the economy, while still allowing some market mechanisms down below.
Yeah, a
lot of that does sound like what China actually has.
Intelligent is that that in spite of all the talk about oligarchs, billionaires, over 60% of economy is still in state hands. And their idea is that even these big companies owned by state should go through the test of market, so that you don't get too much into corruption and so on and so on and so on. The problem for me is that obviously it doesn't really work. Look at the latest COVID crisis. Maybe they will succeed, but you see all this dissatisfaction among ordinary people. It had to explode into open, violent protests. The system was not able to register and integrate it properly. So now I'm asking in a totally naive way, can we keep this Chinese idea of, yes, limited use of market, but not as the deciding agency. Some kind of, and all the problem is what kind of? Can we avoid authoritarian state here? Some kind of social organization force takes into account social interests, potential social tensions, and so on, and sets limits to it, regulates it, and so on. And here, I must tell you, although I'm horrified by many things that the new president, is doing, here maybe we don't pay enough attention to what he is effectively doing and saying. It's not all bad. On the one hand, he says it clearly. In the wild 90s and later, when we were playing too much a capitalist game, as you just said, social distinction, class distinction exploded. Now he said something very nice. He said that in the choice between growth and social solidarity, we neglected social solidarity. And we should risk now even to lower our growth if the result can be abolishing more poverty, bringing more welfare to ordinary people. This is his big motto. It's not just what we read in the newspapers, we want Taiwan war and so on. His big obsession is the same as with Deng Xiaoping. Socialism will not work without a certain basic safety and welfare of the mass of ordinary people. And this cannot be simply achieved just through the market. And aren't we now, just to finish, in the West, approaching a similar insight? Let me just give you this insight and then where I see the problem. Did you read all for example, apropos Davos, did you read, was it reported by you that 200 top billionaires, millionaires, public persons said, we want higher taxes. And I don't think this was benevolence. They became vaguely aware that if the ongoing social tensions go on, they will also pay the consequences. Financial Times, the voice of big financial capital, said also capitalism needs a fundamental radical change, and so on. Now, it would be easy to dismiss this as blah, 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 empty talk. No, it's important that we start to talk about it, because hypocritical as they may be, such interventions create a good atmosphere where you are expected to question not just this point of corruption, blah, 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 but capitalist, what's wrong with the system? What I am afraid is just my old insight into cynical functioning of ideology, that in the same way as with ecology, where we all the time talk about ecological threat, but if you look basically at what is going on, it's pretty close to zero. But I think that if we will not find a way towards this type of, now again, I will propose another Assange war communism formula, like more democratic, not necessarily in the sense of Western multi-party democracy, but in a very simple sense that in whatever way, the voice of the people should be heard, not just heard, but taken into account. If we don't do this, then we will be in the world of Trump and Russia, you know what worries me in Russia now? Not only Putin occupying Ukraine, but my God, poor Russians themselves. You know, did people notice something which worries me so much, my God, that now allegedly there is a war for succession going on? Who comes after Putin, blah, blah. But how is this struggle going on? It should have been a normal struggle of not necessarily multi-party, but, you know, different orientations, different political agents debating, blah, blah, blah. But what is happening now in Russia is that more and more a totally non-transparent conflict between what they call oligarchs, even warlords. Who is this Prigozhin, whom now even Putin tries to limit? Prigozhin, the guy who owns the Wagner Group. Wagner Group, which is a private mercenary army and the most effective part of Russian army, she is what we call a warlord. And warlords are something that we usually ironically describe as, oh, this belongs to primitive third world countries. Yeah, Congo, yeah, I don't know where. No, we get them in Russia. This worries me very, very much.
You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.